Welcome to the Music for the Soul podcast, where we talk honestly about difficult things. This is a place where music, hope, and healing come together. I'm Becky Nordquist.
And I'm Steve Seiler. Today we have with us Mr. Clarence Church. He is the writer of one of my favorite songs in our catalog. So Clarence, I'm going to do my best to embarrass you here a little bit today, but welcome to the podcast.
Man, it's really great to be here.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, I still remember the day that I was sitting at my desk, doing some business, and I got an email from you with a song attached. And normally I'm multitasking and wearing, 8 or 9 hats at once. So I hit play and went back to whatever I was doing. And I guess I was 10 or 15 seconds into the song, and I was like, wait a minute. And I pushed back from my desk and dropped what I was working on, and I was in the song. And it was just an epiphany because we were in the middle of producing a record for the hurricane survivors. So we're back in the time machine now. Yeah. I don't know if Katrina, I think, was 2005, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So as a white man, I felt like I didn't have any right really to speak to the folks in Ward 9. I felt like there was a lot of racial overtones to the whole Katrina thing. And I really felt sensitive to that. And I thought, and I wasn't a New Orleans resident. So I felt like, how can I meaningfully speak into this with a song? Because basically what happened was after the hurricane, one of our donors called and said, are you doing something for the hurricane survivors? And I said, well, we don't have a budget, for another record. And he goes, you got one now, go. And I knew the holidays were coming. And so I thought, whatever we do, we need to do it quickly because it was the end of August already. And I thought, gosh, how do we do something meaningful between now and November? And it was like a couple of days after I was having all these thoughts and all these concerns that Binder of the Broken wound up in my inbox. And I'm listening to it. And my immediate thought is, first of all, I've always loved your singing voice. So my immediate thought was, well, Clarence is going to sing it. That problem is solved. But I thought it needs to be a duet because the Binding of the Broken can not only be just for people who've been wounded by the storm, but for the woundedness that was emerging in the relationships of the people in the community. And I immediately thought, so this needs to be a duet. And I called you. I remember calling you, and we started dreaming a little bit. And you told me, what did you tell me, the singer that you'd always loved?
I loved Lisa Bevel right after I had first come to the Lord and different Christian music that I'd been introduced to. And I always loved her voice and loved her music. And to my surprise, you knew her, right?
Yeah, you told me that. And I had just a few weeks ago done a live event with Lisa in Nashville. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I think we can make this happen.
That is you, Steve. I mean, it's like, is there people, he does that. It's like, oh yeah, I know them.
You know that Eric Burden song where he says, I dreamed I was in a Hollywood movie? That feels like my life a lot of the time. Because like, this is just too ridiculous to be true. But anyway, So I called Lisa. She said yes. I called Clarence back. Right. I'm so excited. I get to tell Clarence. So he's on the phone. And I think, were you in Colorado Springs? Or
I was in Colorado at the time. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, so how do we get him to Nashville? And he and I are on the phone, and somebody was overhearing the conversation in the office you were in and offered to pay for your flight right then.
Yeah. I remember saying, I have no idea how I'm going to get there. I was working at a church and wasn't making a whole lot of money. And I said, man, this is a great opportunity. I have no idea how I'm going to get there. And she goes, well, I already booked your flight. Like, what? Yeah.
So why were you on the phone?
She booked the flight. So.
Well, that is really the microcosm for how that record came together, because we were in New Orleans in 58 days with a completed CD, passing them out by the thousands.
Wow.
Churches and shelters in the New Orleans area. And for me, Binder of the Broken was the linchpin of that record. There I go using the phrase record again, Mr. Dinosaur here. But anyway, it really was for the project. I thought Binder of the Broken was the glue for the whole project. And not only that, I don't know if I ever told you this or not, but I'd tried to write a Music for the Soul theme song at one point, and it was just so awful. And it was so forced, because I was trying so hard. Right. And I felt like Binder of the Broken, from the minute I heard it, I thought this is as close to a theme song as anything I could ever ask for.
Wow.
Because our heart in this ministry is that we would bind the wounds of the brokenhearted in the name of Jesus, give them hope, give them healing. And that song does that so powerfully.
It really does. As I was just reading over the lyric, it's like heavy heart, weary soul, desperate eyes, yearning arms. I mean, those just speak so deeply to our world and all the different facets of things that need to be healed. It is just truly, and your vocal, and I love Lisa too. She's so fabulous. But your vocal is just incredible. And the song, the lyrics are just beautiful. And I just sense that when you listen to the song, and as our listeners hear it, you're going to feel like part of you is being kind of rebound together. It's really a great song. So
I appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
Well, let's play just a little bit of this now. And then at the end of the program, of course, we'll play the whole thing.
Oh, come you heavy heart, come find your rest. Come fall into the Father and behold. Oh, come you weary soul, break forth with singing. Take refuge in the favor of the Lord. His peace is your reward. So lift your hands to the binder of the broken and lift your voice with the song of the redeemed. Face to face with the healer of the hurting. Rejoice, for the light has come.
So, Clarence, we have to ask, what were you feeling, thinking? Can you remember back when you wrote Binder? Where did it come from? What place were you in?
I mean, you're a writer, Steve. So, you were always told, you write what you know. We certainly pull from experiences and we can write in the third person. But I've always been a person that I recognize my brokenness. I recognize my humanity. And I recognize my inability ultimately to bind my own wounds, to heal myself. I've tried and failed miserably. And, the word is full. The Bible's full of invitations for us to bring all of your burdens, all of your cares. Come to me, all you're heavy laden, and I will bring you rest. So at that time, I do know, I was still fairly new in the ministry. I was going through some personal challenges at that time. And it really was probably wrote it in less than an hour. It was one of those that just kind of poured out. So it was really a cry of my heart at the time. It still is a cry of my heart at the time. Yeah. I not only have experienced that healing and that binding myself, I've been humbled and honored to be able to help facilitate that in the lives of others as a worship leader.
That is so wonderful. I love how you're really living that out authentically. And, it's a beautiful thing when we get to that place where we can just acknowledge that it's not like it's a season and then we're all done with that stuff, but then when we get to actually experience, which marries the head knowledge to the experiential knowledge of who God is. And that's what I'm hearing from you. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Where you're everything you've read and learned becomes real, and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and all those wonderful characters becomes your own. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned obviously being a worship leader. What role has music played in your life, or roles is probably a better question.
Yeah, I think there is, and I think you've mentioned this about the power and the implications of music and the human experience, particularly the brain and the central nervous system, helping to reset and the ground. So music has always it's been a part of my culture. My family's very musical. My aunt was an amazing gospel pianist and organist. I didn't get those chops, but I love it. And just grew up with music all around. My mother was a teacher and forced me to listen to musicals as a kid. And growing up, I grew up in Germany, so I've been around a lot of different cultures my whole life. So music and culture has just been something that's formed me. It's been a place, it's been a landing place for me, both lyrically and instrumentally, allowing that experience to take root in my heart.
Wow. So how old would you say were you when you started to write music?
Well, that's a good question. I think I really probably got serious about it in high school. I was part of so I came to the Lord at 17, and two of my best friends, still best friends to this day. They're both still in ministry, and so we were part of a little Christian band. We toured around different military bases and youth groups, and I was just exploding with the joy of this newfound faith that I had, even though I grew up in the church, but this new quote unquote born again experience. And in high school started to write songs with those guys, and it's terrible, really.
We all have those.
That's why I was laughing. It's like, well, I mean, you couldn't really call it a song. I mean, it was words and put together in a terrible way, and some terrible chord progressions. But anyway, yeah, high school is when I kind of started.
Yeah, tester pancakes, we call those.
Oh yeah, you always throw the first pancake away, right?
Exactly.
I call it the dog cake. The dog can have it. Or you call it the very bad first draft, right?
Yeah.
So what led you to send the song to Steve?
Well, I had met Steve through a mutual friend, Reggie Ham, and I had met him in Nashville. I don't know, Steve, it was probably a year before that, maybe a year or two before that. And Steve had been an early mentor in my writing. I would send him stuff, and he would graciously tell me it sucked without telling me it sucked.
Did you ever get the crickets? Because I get the crickets.
No. He was very gracious and I appreciated it because he was honest, but still recognizing that, I had the fragile ego of most artists, but he was able to, kind of point me to give me some tips and tricks. So I had been in regular contact with him for several years. So I'd sent him songs back and forth over the years. And so that was pretty typical. When you say
Nice.
Yeah. But your timing for sending me the perfect song was,
well, those are those things that we can't plan, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's what I love about all this. That's what I love about the, music, but ministry and the work that I'm in now. There's so many things that are beyond our control. And that was one of them.
Yeah. We often say there's not a wasted step. Even the things that are broken and ugly steps, there's still steps to leading you deeper into him. And he's so good and gracious to use everything that we lay before him. I love that. So can I ask a question? You don't have to answer this, but can you talk a little bit about the segue into worship leading? This is not the easiest job. So first of all, thank you for being faithful in that call to begin with. It's a topic that's kind of dear to my heart over my years in the church and stuff. And I just wonder if you'd be willing to share with us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. Yeah. Again, growing up, being around music my whole life, the two friends I just told you about, we were in the band and always loved music, always, loved singing and playing and writing. There was something that didn't quite resonate with me about the performance side. So I loved the artistic expression of it, but the performance side really is more about you, right? It's about me presenting myself. And not that I don't think that's wrong. I think God absolutely uses that, but that's not who I am. But I knew there was something in me that wanted to move people closer to the Lord. And honestly, but when I first before I got into worship leading, I didn't even know that was a career. I didn't know that you can make a living doing that. So yeah, I just knew that I wanted to be involved in ministry. I knew I wanted to be involved in music. And I remember driving in my car. I was in sales at that time, and I'm driving in my car, and there was a record that was out during that time. It was actually one of the Hillsong records, one of those first ones that Shout to the Lord.
Oh yeah.
And I remember listening to that, and I don't know if you remember the first especially the first one. The production wasn't super great. It wasn't, but man, I just remember I was driving in my car and I was bawling. And I just really felt it was a significant moment where I felt the Lord say, this is what you were meant to do.
Yeah.
You were meant to help people encounter my presence in this way. So that was kind of how, and then I worked for some part-time for some churches and yeah, before I knew it, I was doing it full time. But yeah, really it's about always certainly using those gifts and using those passions, but really more about getting out of the way and allowing the Lord to do what he does ultimately.
What you just said is every time I'm asked to play in church, that's my prayer. Lord, help me to play well enough and sing well enough to not be the point.
Or not be a distraction, right?
Right. Exactly. If I make a mistake, I know they'll go, oh, right. They'll be thinking about me. Don't want that.
Bless his heart.
Yeah, bless his heart. Exactly.
In the Southern way.
So I find myself always praying, audience of one, Lord, I'm playing this for you. Take it and use it. Because there is that tension whenever you're in front of a congregation, that rock star vibe. I was at one of the times the first time I played at the church I go to now, the pastor actually said, I shouldn't say this, but he's such a rock star. And I'm thinking, no, you really shouldn't say that. That is the last thing you should say.
You are kind of a rock star, Steve.
He is kind of a rock. He knows rock stars. I mean, so
I do know some rock stars. If that counts, I'll take that.
Right. So I just have to ask, piggybacking on that little conversation, is there a word of encouragement that you could give to worship leaders, pastors, directors that are currently in that position and maybe are a little discouraged? There's so much that feeds into that. And you do find people that do feed that spotlight need when they step into worship ministry. And sometimes just, working with people can be very discouraging. Is there any words of encouragement or advice that you could give them on their journey just from your experience?
I love that question. And I wish I had someone to kind of guide and direct me in that. I believe I've always lived by this, but I've recently, as I've transition into more what I'm doing now, I've always lived by authenticity. And you mentioned that a second ago, Becky, about being authentic. I think that the church, unfortunately, kind of perpetuates that rock star, look at me. Churches they really want to be the next mega church. And I don't think that a lot of folks are necessarily trying to chase that, but it kind of just happens, where there's budget, there's the church, there is certainly a business element to it. Got to keep the lights on, and the whole church growth phenomenon and all that. But it is easy to get stuck in this pattern of I have to look like or be like or sound like this person. Ultimately, people don't connect to that. People connect to you. They connect to authentic version of who you are, not the manufactured version or the version that you're trying to portray. My encouragement is be who you are, man. Be who you are. And if you don't know who you are, find out who you are. and through counseling and therapy, get it out. And we definitely talk more about that often.
Well, the inauthenticness that you're talking about is so much work and ultimately unsustainable.
It is. There's a few documentaries out on the Hillsong organization. My wife and I watched it, and honestly, my heart was broken. I was crying, and the next day I'm crying out and praying for Brian Houston, because I know what some of those things feel like. I know what it's like to feel the pressure of trying to sustain something that you can't. And more importantly, I know the pressure of not being able to really bring your burdens, right? We were talking about bring your brokenness, really, right? We say that church is a healthy place, and we really want you to come and just come as you are. And that doesn't always apply. Well, it certainly doesn't always apply to leaders.
Yeah, I think often it's we're okay if you've had a past, but don't be struggling with that right now. please don't be honest with it right now. It's okay if 20 years ago dealt with an addiction or 10 years ago you wrestled with this or that, but it's really not the hospital that I think Christ intended. Instead, and not just with leaders, but people in general, it's like, you need to clean up before you come here.
Yeah.
And it's so completely counter to the teachings of Jesus Christ. And it's so very sad. So many wounds and so much broken. And as I think about the song that we're featuring today, I know that there are people that are in ministry right now afraid to go, oh my goodness, if people only really knew.
Yeah. And I was one of those, loving the Lord and really wanting to quote unquote live right. And there were things that I was struggling with,
Sure.
There were things that I couldn't reconcile with my faith. My faith says this, yet this is my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And, in psychology, there's something called integration. And the more unintegrated we are, the more internal turbulence. And that is often how depression, anxiety, and ultimately that's trauma. Trauma is a lack of integration and a lack of authenticity. And I lived that out. I experienced that. And man, I pray that we loosen our grip in the church on the way we think things should be and people should behave and be, and let them be who God's created them. We allow God to heal them.
Yeah. Let him bind them up and let's acknowledge that we all need him.
Yes.
If we could get our act together and clean ourselves up, and if we could live right, do right, or be better, do better on our own, why would we need the cross and why would we need Jesus? And it's like, I love it when I see a pastor come before me and say, look, I'm human and I can't. Mm-hmm. I need Jesus just like you do, because then it gives me the freedom and courage to be honest with where I'm at.
You guys have made me think of so many things. One is just that sometimes there aren't as clear examples in the scripture of what we're talking about. But I mean, Paul just comes out and says, why do I do the very thing I don't want to do, and the thing I want to do, I don't do? I mean, that's what we're talking about, that struggle between some of our behaviors and what we want to hold fast to and believe in and become. So there's that piece. When we were working on the Somebody's Daughter project, I was invited to come and speak to a group of pastors in Cincinnati. There were like 400 of them there. And when you talk about whether or not pastors can be authentic about what they're struggling with behind the scenes, I stood up and I said, well, one of the things I see in the church is that when a pastor admits to a struggle, they just take him out back and shoot him. And, that's just what came out of my mouth. And I was startled when the entire place burst into applause. Mm-hmm. This is a room full of pastors, 400, and they're like literally immediately affirming that comment. And it was something I just kind of threw out there as a perception that I'd had, that whenever a pastor admitted to struggling, it was death for that pastor as opposed to support. So that, that's something I think that we really need to be more grace-filled toward our leaders in ministry. I know I've talked to pastors who feel like they can't really be themselves ever. No. And that's, again, that is unsustainable.
No, it's a system that perpetuates shame and hiding and inauthenticity, which, we've said that is the opposite of the heart of God.
I feel sometimes in one of the reasons we edit our podcasts, right? Every once in a while I'll say something and I'll think, whoops, that is not the right way for a ministry leader to express themselves, So, I mean, that is something that's playing in my head all the time. Little editor is just sitting there going, and that's a shame.
And don't you think that further explains why non-Christians don't want to have, we can't relate. We're not relatable.
Yes.
Let's just be honest. We struggle with the same things that we're no different than anyone else. We're just not. And we make this faith inaccessible, unattainable.
There it is.
Unrealistic.
Yeah, unrealistic. And like, I don't want to be like that. Plus, they don't seem like they're having any fun either.
Where's the joy?
No doubt. I thought they were supposed to be new creations and fully alive. They seem pretty dead in the water to me. You know what? This has been a conversation at our house a lot lately, is just that very thing is you can go to a bar and you will be greeted with open arms and unconditional love, or a place that's complete, non-Christians, as I do my air quotes, and you receive more acceptance and love. And if we are the ones that have been called by God to manifest who he is to this world, oh my goodness, we should be the most welcoming, loving people, because we are all just loved by God so much.
Mhm.
And he gives us the freedom to be who he created us to be and just live from his life and his strength and his fruit. And it's not our job to judge, and it's not our job to pretend. But again, there's that authenticity thing of, if we all just showed up with our empty hands and said, hey, I have found somebody that loves you right where you are, and you don't have to clean up to meet him, but you can come as you are, and he loves you right where you are.
Mm.
I just feel like we'd have a different picture of what it means to be a Christ follower or a Christian. So often we're met with this, I use the word, I don't even know if it's a real word, Pharisaical type religion. And it is so far apart from Jesus Christ. And I'm not talking about turning away from the word of God. We can't do that. However, what I am saying is that we are just like Christ in the fact that we're called to offer open arms and say, this is the Savior. This is the where you're going to find peace. This is where you're going to find healing, is in his person. It's not anything you can do. You can't earn it. You can't even dig your way through all the stuff to get it. He's already done it all for you. Yeah, it would be so nice if the church, the American church particularly, if we could just offer that kind of authenticity and say, look, I need him just like you need him.
Yeah.
But I just know the path. I know the direction to get there.
Clarence, you said a couple times, you've made reference to what you're doing now. So can
Yeah.
you talk with us about where God has led you now, and how you're serving in this day?
Yeah. And frankly, I think this is a great transition into that. Yeah. So about 4 years ago now, I started my master's in clinical mental health and completed that 3 years ago. So initially I was, kind of fractionally doing counseling while I was leading worship. And I'm transitioning out of full-time vocational ministry of leading worship into the ministry of counseling and therapy. I'm often asked, do you want to do worship or do you want to do counseling? What's the difference, or what's the connection? And my wife's also a therapist. And, she often says, whether we're leading worship or whether we are in a counseling room, both environments is creating a safe space for people to connect with the Lord.
Yes.
So yeah, so in counseling, I used to think that it was about me having to give people the answers and all that. And really same thing with our faith, right? You think I need to give, no, but we can be that real safe space for people to be who they are, be authentically who they are, and allow that healing to emerge. And it's amazing, because a lot of the, where I first started counseling was in New Mexico, and the church I was at bordered the Navajo reservation.
Mm.
It's a lot of historical trauma, a lot of addiction, a lot of these things, and a lot of non-Christians, right? I counsel people that weren't Christians. In fact, most of my clients weren't and still aren't. And I have seen God show up in those ways, or in a therapeutic environment, in tangible ways. Just, they might not be throwing up their hands, while I'm singing or at the keyboard, crying, worshiping, but I can see God disarming and healing in the moment. Man, it's so humbling.
I think you touched on something there, that the distinction between separating ministry from real life. As followers of Christ, we're in ministry every time we're interacting with anybody.
Absolutely.
Rather than seeing it like a gig, seeing it like a way of life.
Yeah.
And those opportunities come up every day to love well and shine a light. And so I have every confidence that God is present in your counseling ministry, and that it is just as life-changing as your worship leading.
I sure hope so. And it is an honor to do it. to see people, it's their most intimate moments.
It's sacred ground.
It is. That's the other word that my wife always says. It's sacred. It's a sacred space.
Well, we understand congratulations are in order for a new position. So we're just excited for you that God is leading into that dream of yours and giving you a wonderful new opportunity.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm excited for the people that you're going to come in contact with, because obviously, even just in this short time, we've gotten to hear your heart, and a heart that loves the Lord like you do, and that believes in that authenticity. I mean, you naturally offer this safety in just your personality. So I'm excited for the people that God is going to be putting before you. And while it's a different platform, it is still a platform when we step before anybody who is asking questions and wondering and wandering and needing a trail guide, if you will. So I'm very excited for them too, and for you in this new adventure. Bless you. Thank you so much for serving people and serving God at the same time. So great.
Amen. So Clarence, how can folks get in touch with you if they would like to do that?
Right now, Facebook is the best way, the easiest way. Just hit me up there. Either friend me or send me a private message in there if you want to have any questions. I'm happy to answer the best I can.
Terrific.
Thanks so much for being with us today and sharing your life and your time and your words with us, your encouragement. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Steve, so much for having me, man.
You bet.
It's been great being with you.
If you enjoyed the discussion today, please share it with a friend and give us a positive review on iTunes.
And please visit our website, musicforthesoul.org, where you can stream or download every song in our catalog, including Binder of the Broken. Read our lyrics, our healing music guide, our blog posts, and much more. Thank you for listening. God bless.
Oh, come you heavy heart, come find your rest, come fall into the Father and behold. Oh, come you weary soul, break forth with singing, take refuge in the favor of the Lord. His peace is your reward. So lift your hands to the binder of the broken, and lift your voice with the song of the redeemed. Face to face with the healer of the hurting. Rejoice, for the light has come.
Oh, come you desperate eyes, come see the Savior, come gaze upon the source of hope and life. Oh, come you longing arms, your wait is over. Receive the blessings of a loving Lord. His faithfulness is yours.
So lift your hands to the binder of the broken, and lift your voice with the song of the redeemed. Face to face with the healer of the hurting. Rejoice, for the light has come.
Rejoice, for the light has come.
Rejoice.